One of the more difficult things about parenting is that you're gonna screw it up. You're not gonna know the perfect thing to say. You're gonna fumble, you're gonna mess up. That means that you need to be a good apologizer and you need to be a good owner for when you do things wrong. We tend to be extra hard on ourselves when it comes to parenting because there is so much on the line. We love these tiny humans and we want to do what's best by them, but the information that we have may not be what's best by them. That means we may end up passing things along we didn't want to pass along. We may end up with behaviors we shouldn't have continued and then eventually did realize we shouldn't. And there's two ways to look at this. One is that you're teaching them that it's okay to evolve and grow and change as a person while also owning that you were not evolved, grown, and changed as a person. Own the poor behaviors. And the other one is to live a life of regret where you beat yourself up for everything that you possibly have done wrong instead of just giving yourself grace, the same grace you would want your children to give to themselves when they've messed up and moved on. None of us are going to get parenting 100% right. That's not a thing. If we're going into something with the expectation of perfection, we're always going to fall short. The best definition of success, I think, is doing the best you can with what you have at any given time. That means some of the choices that I made when my older ones were little, if I was doing the best I could with what I had at that given time, that was successful. However, I wouldn't be making those same choices now because I have more resources. And I often think about if I had children in my 30s or in my 40s as opposed to in my 20s, would that have changed how I parented? But I think some of the things that we learn about parenting are boots on the ground kind of things we wouldn't even know how to learn outside of parenting. I'm currently putting together a parenting course for you guys, and one of the hardest things that I am coming up with is figuring out how to communicate, how to give yourselves grace, while also making sure that you maintain a bond with your children when you've done things that were not graceful. A portion of that is teaching our children to be good forgivers, as we should be modeling being good forgivers for others. But at the same time, we don't want them to think that then they aren't allowed to have boundaries or anything like that. So we need to balance and toe that line well. And a lot of this is just character development, their character development, our character development. We know in parenting more is caught than taught. They are going to catch the behaviors we have is much more than we teach them things. Which means that we need to work on our character and grow and develop ourselves as people alongside our children. We never should stop that. There should be no point in time that your character stops developing. You have to be like an onion, peel the layers, because every time you peel back a layer, you're going to find something else you need to grow in. And every time you peel back a layer of yourself where you realize you were impatient in all of these areas, you might find other areas you were impatient in that you didn't even realize, but you would have never gotten to that had you not resolved this in other areas. And all of that is okay. You want to continuously develop parts of yourself because also developing through parts of yourself, you're going to have lessons that you'll be able to teach some of your kids. Interestingly, I've noticed some behaviors in my littler ones that my older ones didn't have, and I realized some of it is because I developed through different patterns with my older ones and lost those behaviors that they never understood the path to course correcting, to going from a poor behavior to a better behavior. Therefore, they're just kind of taking my word that that's the right behavior because they're seeing other people model it, but they've actually never seen anybody improve through it. And on the flip side of the coin, my older kids know versions of me that don't exist anymore. So when I tell my younger children that, they're like, that doesn't sound like you, Mom. Or my older kids would be like, no, that was her. And it's really important for me to remember that my children were born at different points in my life, and I need to honor that timeline that they have with me. My 22-year-old, my 14-year-old, and my 4-year-old all know vastly different versions of me as their mother. My gut reaction is to say that my 4-year-old is going to know the best version of me, but that's not actually true because my 20-year-old and my 22-year-old, they knew a risk-taker version of me. They knew a freer version of me. They knew a version of me that doesn't exist anymore. Granted, that version of me had a lot of things to sort through, but as I sorted through them, I lost other aspects of myself, and only they will know those. So all of that to say, don't be fearful that they're catching the bad version of you. Be fearful that you're not growing enough to be able to improve, that they can catch an improved version of you once you develop that. Have a fear of stagnation. Have a fear of holding on to trauma. Have a fear of not developing who you are as a person. Have a fear of at the end of your life having regrets. Those are the fears that are going to drive change. Those are the fears that are going to bring out better versions of you. And those are going to be the people that you want your children to catch from you. As long as you're continuously digging into yourself, then your children will benefit. And remember, the goal is never perfection. You're not going to be perfect. Your kids are never going to be perfect, and you're going to mess things up. So learn to say sorry. Sorry that I did that. I don't know why I did that. How could I have handled that better? Because feedback from your kids is pretty valuable. It's annoying sometimes, but it's valuable. So don't listen in a pompous way. Listen with open ears, because they may have feedback that nobody else would give you. In turn, growing you more to make sure that you're not inadvertently teaching or modeling things that they don't want to catch.